Property division is tough, but there are two types of property that you need to know about when you're going through a divorce. The first is marital property. Marital property is any property that was acquired during the marriage. What do I mean by that? Any income that was earned during the marriage, any businesses acquired during the marriage, any houses, cars, personal property, anything acquired during the marriage is going to be in the marital category. Then there's the other category, which is non-marital property. Non-marital property is property that was earned prior to the marriage, was given to one party, but not the other, as a result of inheritance or gift. Those are separate property. But there's a little twist. Sometimes people mix up these two categories and it makes things a challenge. The best way to explain this is through a little demonstration. Okay, so we're gonna take a look at these paper clips, and these paper clips here represent dollars. And these dollars are in a bank account and they were all earned during the marriage. Now, I have these three paper clips here. These three paper clips I inherited from my great Aunt Ruth, and I decide I'm gonna put them in the same account as my marital paper clips. It's been years. The money's growing, shrinking. We've spent some, we've earned some, interest is gained. Now it's time for a divorce. Which dollars are marital and non-marital? Can you find them? The answer is that it can be really hard to find them, and sometimes what the court decides is that if you have commingled your funds, if you have mixed marital and non-marital funds, whether it's in an account, a retirement account, or sometimes even property, it's now all marital, and it's been tainted as marital. So be very careful about what's marital, what's non-marital, and make sure that you understand what you're doing when it comes to property division. So once you and your soon-to-be ex-spouse or the court end up making a determination as to what's marital property and what's non-marital property, it's time to divide things. The court wants to divide the marital property equitably. Note, I said equitably, not equally. It's not necessarily going to be an equal 50-50 split, although that is the intention, to get as close to that as reasonably possible, while also taking into account any special factors that might be involved in your case, such as if somebody dissipated some assets. More on that later. So the court is then going to take the marital pot and going to start dividing things out. It might mean equalizing retirement accounts or equalizing bank accounts, or it might be things like selling a house and dividing the proceeds. It also could look a little different. For example, if one spouse solely owned the home, perhaps the home won't be ordered sold, but the other spouse might get more of an investment account or some other type of property to try to even things out or to make it equitable. So more on that dissipation thing. What is dissipation? Sometimes there is a marital wrong so great that the court feels the need to make up for it. One example might be if one spouse took out a large chunk of retirement and spent it on a ski chalet for their mistress. Another example might be somebody sending money to their family without the other spouse knowing. And over time, that gets to tens of thousands of dollars, and their spouse had no idea that the marital assets were being spent elsewhere without their permission. The court might look at these circumstances and decide to make it up to the other spouse or make it equitable. And in that case, the court might divide the assets, the marital assets specifically, unevenly to make sure that the spouse that wasn't dissipating assets is compensated. An important part of property distribution is valuing all the property. Some of it's easy. A retirement account, you know what's in there. An investment account, a bank account, you know what's in there. But other property, you have to get valued. You might have to get an appraisal on your house, an appraisal on your car, an appraisal on your boat. You might have to get appraisal on any kind of very expensive jewelry or art or anything truly of value. Additionally, if there's a business, there's going to have to be a business valuation. Now, all that sounds really expensive, right? There is an easier way. Sometimes the two of you can just agree on what the value is, and it's called a stipulation, and you stick to it. Especially for something like a used car, I strongly recommend looking at the KBB value and just calling it done. Dividing debt can be even more complicated. If the debt is tied to a marital asset, something like the marital home, the court is likely to order the home sold and the debt will be paid off pursuant to the terms of your mortgage or your HELOC or any other kind of lien. But what about unsecured debt, like credit card debt or even a personal loan or something like that that you and your spouse had together? Well, the answer is it depends. A lot of times courts won't touch that. Why is that? Well, because the agreement is with you and your spouse, and a third party, the third party being the credit card company or the lender, who is not a party to your divorce. And some courts will take the stance, we can't divide this debt because we can't bring in this third party. Other courts see it differently. They see it as, well, we can't involve ourselves in this contract with a third party, but we can assign who's going to pay which portion of it and hold each other accountable. So it really depends on what the court's going to decide to do. At the end of the day, the best thing to do is to settle your divorce, because dividing debt in a settlement is something that we do all the time. You don't want to walk away into your new beginning with loose ends. Property division can be really challenging, and it is very meticulous work. You have to make sure that you identify what is marital and non-marital property, and that can be a challenge. There's a lot of case law out there that really defines these little pieces. You also have to value every piece of property, whether it's marital or non-marital, because the court does consider it when figuring out an equitable distribution. Make sure that you go with attorneys who are used to dealing with significant amounts of property and know some really good appraisers. At Z Family Law, we don't write endings, we create new beginnings, and we would help you create yours. And a part of creating your new beginning is knowing what you have to start with so that you can figure out how to get from there to where you want to be.